that kind introduction, and also appreciate your accommodating the schedule that I have found myself in today. When we scheduled this initially, we figured this general session was going to be done, which it is. But the special session, of course, was called by the governor on Monday, and so we're right in the middle of it. This morning, the Senate had third reading votes, and we waited on the House for a while. And then there were some votes, or some bills that came over from the House, which were scheduled for committees, but I was grateful that none of my committees were assigned. So I have to be back at 1:30 for the second reading of the bills coming over from the House. And I'm sure you're aware of the special session, but the way I would characterize this is to paraphrase a political statement that was made about 20 years ago. Paraphrase it in this way: it's the economy, ladies and gentlemen. It is the economy that is the real issue today, and yet we find ourselves in special session because the governor just couldn't understand what the word no was. And let me cover one other detail on the civil union bill, which is, of course, why the session was really called. Yes, there are a few other bills that were put on the governor's call, but we could have taken care of those major issues. The most significant one is the water bill that authorizes several water projects that we really do need to continue moving forward with. But they insisted on not taking care of that, as we could have amended it onto a bill on Wednesday of last week in order to really justify their call for this session. Last week, I'll tell you a brief tale of a bill that occurred. There was a bill that was introduced in January, towards the beginning of, well, at the beginning of the session. And it was then held on the calendar, and held on the calendar, and held on the calendar, and then it was finally given to committee hearings, and it went through the committees quite successfully, and then it was put up for second reading and held on the calendar, and then finally given an approval, and then it came up for third reading in the final week of the session. And the sponsor was very confident that the votes were there on the floor. But guess what happened? The leadership decided, we don't like this bill. And so on procedure, they killed it. Now you might think I was talking about the civil union bill over in the House, but in fact I was talking about a bill of mine that would have enabled same-day reporting of election returns by the Secretary of State, so that multi-county districts would have a firm, unofficial total that we could rely on election night. Really, everybody agreed that that's a pretty good idea, but because the Democrats were having a battle with the Secretary of State, Scott Dessler, they decided to kill the bill. And in about 10 seconds they did. John Morse, the majority leader, simply said, I move this bill to lay over the calendar one day, which put it beyond the point of being able to go through the House. And the Senate President, Brandon Schaefer, said all in favor, and somebody said aye, and the gavel came down, wham, and within 10 seconds the bill was dead. And they wouldn't redo that, they simply did it. Now, was that an abuse of the process? I didn't like the process, but it was not abuse of the process, it was the process. It means something to have the majority in that particular body. And we saw similar action take place with the civil union bill over the House. But I'm here to tell you that in my 10 years of experience, this happens all the time. On Wednesday, 2 more bills were killed in the Senate on the same level. So, anyway, spending not enough time on that because I don't have a very limited amount of time, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a picture as to what we're doing down there and where we're at. I expect the session will wrap up tomorrow with third reading votes in both the House and the Senate on those bills that have moved through the process. The civil union bill was killed in, well, it was voted down in committee, and but it is very different than it was. Actually, about half of the district is brand new. And that's good news for us Republicans, because that includes Larimer County, it includes the southwestern parts of Jefferson County, it includes a little key corner over in Park County, and all of those are essentially Republican performing areas. I say essentially because Fort Collins is a tough area. But countywide, there are no Democrats that are elected in Larimer County. Occasionally, a county commissioner will slip through, but all the other county seats are always have been Republican. So Larimer County is a Republican performing district as well. This means that what was politically unattainable now is a possibility in a good year with a good race. And I see a good year in many ways. A good year because, in fact, it's a bad time for liberty-loving Americans. Over the last 4 years, we've seen our economy, and again, what I say, it's the economy, ladies and gentlemen. That's the real issue before us today. We need sound economic policies at the federal level and at the state level so that we can get this nation back on its feet and moving the right direction. And I really see some strong possibilities in those areas, but it's going to take a dramatic change from Washington. Right now, there's so much concern and uncertainty. If you look at what's happening over in Europe with the policies they've had, and you look at the policies of Barack Obama, he follows the socialist patterns that we see in Western Europe. And that is crushing them, and we're on the brink. People understand that. Not just, rock solid Republicans, but the average person knows that something is wrong, and it's the spending. It's the out of control regulation. It's the concept that all of the authority and power for our lives seems to filter back into Washington, D.C. If you look at our Constitution, it's quite the opposite. The Constitution, in Article 1, Section 8, enumerates the powers of Congress. They're very limited, and that's very intentional. If you look at the 9th and the 10th Amendments, it underscores that. It says those powers that are not given to Congress are in the hands of the people and in the hands of the states. Having served in the state legislature for the last 10 years, I can tell you that the attitudes are upside down from what the Constitution really calls for. But more and more people are understanding that and are wanting to see a substantial change. And we can do what we can at the State House, but until Congress changes their path, there's a very limited amount that we can do from the State House, because we're bound up by those, Medicaid. Let me give you that as an example. Medicaid is, of course, that program that's administered at the state level, but it's run by federal policies. I have, in the last 10 years, run several bills seeking Medicaid reform measures, but every time it's a mother may I to the federal government. Currently, Secretary Sebelius said, no, I'm not going down that way. Under the Bush administration, actually, I got some very positive signs from them. But it shouldn't be that we, the states, have to go to the federal government and ask permission for what our policy should be for our people. And for Medicaid, that needs to change. That needs to move back to the state level. Now, I know you can't do it overnight, but you can block fund it overnight. You can say we're spending this much on Medicaid in the state of Colorado, and we'll send that to you, no strings attached. Now, my attitude is we need to then say, and we're going to start trimming this back to the federal level, so that you, the state of Colorado, believe this is the appropriate level of support for the impoverished.